Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We feature destination races from across the country. And after the race, we take you on a tour of the best local food and beverage to celebrate. So whether you are an elite runner or a back of the packer like us, you'll know the best places to accomplish, explore, and indulge on your next runcation. Hey, welcome to episode 95 of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. I'm your host, Aimee.
And I'm your co-host, Dana. I almost feel like a little bit of deja vu.
Why?
Well, not really us. Our listeners might feel like there's a little bit of deja vu because we're back on track. We're releasing on time like we should have been. So.
Well, we can't fight, illness and
life sometimes.
Life a little bit. I mean, there are some podcast hosts who have never missed an episode.
Well, we're close. We almost always post something in the feed to let you know, or at least in social media to let you know that if we have to postpone. So thank you for bearing with us.
Yes.
If you were looking for the show in the feed last
week,
Tuesday, and you didn't get it until, when did it finally go out?
I think Thursday.
Thursday or Friday, I think.
Thursday.
So we apologize for the delay there, but hopefully you enjoyed that one, and you're going to enjoy getting another dose of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast so quickly.
Yay. And I kind of think of this episode as it's a brand new year. It's 2020. It's kind of a return to, what are you laughing
I was going to say,
for?
If you say new year, new you.
No.
I'm hanging these up.
No.
Okay.
I am indeed not saying new year, new you. This is not, we're going to make resolutions to get fit. This is, we have a great audience that tunes in on long runs, on commutes, but I don't think that we have spent an episode really talking about where our journey started with running, and beyond that, and actually well after that, how we got into healthy eating and dropping so much weight.
Yeah, I think that we have talked about it in bits and pieces. We've talked about it with individuals.
Sure.
But no, we haven't done a full episode dedicated just to that. And this might be a good opportunity for us to kind of reset the table.
Sure.
A little bit, to extend the food metaphor a little bit for our listeners who've been with us for a while, or maybe who've just joined us in the middle of this crazy journey, to kind of let them know a little bit about us. And like you said, where we came from. And, we talked about last week where we're going, or 2 weeks ago where we're going.
Yes.
So. But it's nice to know where you came from.
Hey, it's not a new year, new you deal. Okay.
Okay.
There's no resolution or, no,
there's not.
New fad, whatever.
Well, we resolved, I guess you could say we resolved to do some new runs.
New races,
and new cities for the listeners. So
yes,
that's a good New Year's resolution.
Which I believe we are well on our way to achieving next week when we do Fort Lauderdale and then recap that for our audience.
Yes, when this episode drops on Tuesday, we're just 3 days away from heading to Fort Lauderdale for the Publix A1A half marathon. We're not doing them full.
No.
But, and I blame you for that.
Of course. Well, it's a new race. Did I not hear you say that you wanted to go for a PR there?
I think I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
This might be the race where I decide to just kind of see full out what the knee will allow me to do, and kind of see what my baseline is.
Yeah.
Kind of a calibration run.
Yeah.
That way I kind of know what I need to start doing in my training going forward, and what I can do to support you as your runs start to get into the insane, ludicrously long distances as you're training for the Chicago Half Marathon. If in case any listeners out there didn't catch that episode where we
keep
announced
saying it.
that
Go ahead.
Aimee is training for Chicago this year.
He knows I'm freaking out about it, so he
Just
doesn't miss an opportunity to just throw it in the mix.
Well, I look at it as this is my way of doing, how they help people get over phobias by gradually exposing them to the thing that torments them. That's what I'm going to do. Is just I keep mentioning it all the time. Of course, and all the time. More used to it as you hear it.
Well, right now the long runs for me are not insanely long. They're prepping us for Donna. They're prepping us for Star Wars, and I was just an email exchange with Jeff this week about, starting to do some drills to increase speed, because I know that that's where I'm going to have to get to for Chicago. So yeah, and then I know in the hot summer months the mileages are going to get insanely high, but
insanely high.
Things to look forward to in 2020.
Yes, but all this preparation and training and all that, like I said earlier, I blame you. Why? Because it's all your fault.
It's all my fault. You heard it here first on the Runny Drink podcast. It's all my fault.
Well, since we were talking about this is going to be an episode where we tell you guys our story and how we got here, I think it's important for everybody just to understand that we're going to keep the same format today. So we're going to talk about something to do with running, something to do with eating, and something to do with drinking. Yeah. And the run portion is what I'm talking about. Of course. When it being Aimee's fault.
When he says he blames me for getting us on this crazy running journey, even before we got into fitness and weight loss and healthy eating. Really, I mean, we've tried several different strategies, I would say.
Oh, I think that
over the years.
Over the years, yeah, you name it. We've done, just going to the gym 3 days a week. We've done CrossFit. We've done, you name it. Your videos, like aerobics videos, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, we've tried and done all sorts of things for fitness, but running was never something that I would have gone, hey, I have an idea.
I never did it. I know you never did it in high school. I never did it in high school. We were speech and debate nerds.
Yes.
So that, and even in college, and never did I ever, even when my father coached the high school track team, ever get into running. In fact, when I was a freshman in high school, I took PE in summer school so I wouldn't have to sweat during the day in high school, because like teenagers and oh my God, teenage girls yes. and how they feel about I know teenage boys don't care, but
they're sweaty and smelly anyway.
But didn't want to mess up my hair, my beautiful hair. Oh my God, no. So anyway, I took it in the summer and we had to run a mile in 10 minutes to achieve a certain grade, a passing grade.
We had something similar. In growing up in Tampa, we had, I think it was a state requirement. You might have even had to take it. It was personal fitness.
Yes, that's
was a semester.
That's exactly it.
And I used to hate that class because it was just basically running. It was 3 days a week of running and 2 days a week of classroom on nutrition. But I mean, as much as I hated it, 16, 17-year-old me was running 7-minute miles.
Oh my God, I hate you even now.
I hate me back then too.
I hate you even now because I mean, I couldn't. I just remember hearing 10-minute mile will get you a D in this class, which is passing. And you talk about phobia and nerves, and I had a shortened summer school segment to get it done. And my father may have been the very first person to introduce me to the run, walk, run method, because on the weekends when he would go and he was football coach at my high school, and he would do the laundry for the team. And we would go out to the track while the laundry was running, and we would try to get me strategies that would get me to a 10-minute mile. And so he said, on the track, you run the straights, and walk the curves.
Well, little did we know that your dad was actually tapping into the
Yeah.
greater body of knowledge
Yeah.
that Jeff Galloway
Yeah.
is putting out there and coaching you with even today.
So, I mean, and I made that 10-minute mile, and I didn't actually get a D because the coach who taught my class was not my dad, was a different coach, and he graded on a scale. So I think I ended up getting a C, a B or a C.
It's on your permanent record.
Yeah, whatever. You could look it up if you wanted to, I guess. But that was my one and only experience with running until we started to run as a married couple. And before even the podcast started, there was a time in my life, and I think it's just about 10 years ago, that I had a detached retina, and I had to have surgery to repair that detached retina. And the experience.
I have photos of that day where they drew the arrow and said, this eye, not this eye.
Well, and that's not even the most embarrassing thing that I
embarrassing.
remember. That was just humorous for you. But I remember going into the operating room and having to maneuver my body from one gurney to like the operating table, I guess.
Yeah.
And looking up and seeing, because I used to be a classroom teacher, seeing one of my former students who has since gone on and graduated and was now a nurse, helping with the surgery, and my close to 300-pound body moving to that operating table, and how embarrassed I felt about it.
I guess we should have prefaced this with both of us over the years had allowed our weight to creep up.
Well, I mean, you can say that, yes.
So this was almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. This was almost 10 years ago, and I overcame that, and, you know, I healed from that, and I didn't lose my vision, because if you don't do anything about a detached retina, you lose your vision. So I was very lucky.
With awesome doctors, by the way.
With awesome doctors to get that healed and back on track. But then that whole experience motivated me to want to get fit. And I chose a calorie restriction kind of plan and exercise. And it actually did work for me for a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did drop, I think maybe 20 or 30 pounds.
Yeah, I would say it's 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good healthy chunk of weight.
And I wanted to celebrate in a different way. And so I said to you, how about if we go to Disney and we run a half marathon relay?
Yeah.
And I can remember when we went down to Key West, before we went down to Key West in July, prior to the first wine and dine we ever went to in November.
Yeah, we were just vacationing in Key West.
We were vacationing in Key West, but we had just gotten new running shoes because you had said, yes, let's go. We'll do it. It's going to be great. And those narrow Nikes, and I mean, Nike's a great shoe, but I have a very wide foot, so it did not serve me well.
We were running neophytes.
Yeah, we knew nothing.
We knew nothing.
I was just thinking it would be a great accomplishment.
We tried on shoes. They felt good in the store, and we would go on the treadmill some, and we did prior to that, after we got back from Key West, we did a 5K.
We did locally.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that doesn't really tell you what those miles are going to do to you in the wrong shoe.
Oh, my goodness.
So as we started upping our mileage just blindly,
we had to get the right shoes.
We learned real quick.
So we had to
self-correcting error
and get fitted at our local run shop with an expert, Rachel Lee. And she got us into the right shoe for the way that we run, the way that we walk, and so that we could train properly for that first half marathon relay.
Yeah, but now our trip to Key West was in July,
Mm-hmm.
and that was our first time, like our first official run in the training cycle while we were down there on vacation, because we decided to use the resort's gym,
The
and
treadmill.
do it on the treadmill in there.
Yeah.
And then go celebrate on Duval afterwards.
Of course.
I don't think we got fitted for proper running shoes until probably August.
Right.
August, maybe the beginning.
Because we
of
fought
September.
with those Nikes.
It was when mileage started getting up above 6 miles. I started getting shin splints.
It wasn't
really
good.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, we did our local 5K,
yeah.
and then mileage started getting higher. We got fitted for those proper running shoes
Mm-hmm.
and trained for the Wine and Dine relay
Yes.
in November. Yeah.
Yes. And you, as you love to remind me, did the bulk of the mileage. And I did the shorter because it wasn't an even split. I did 5, you did 8.
Yeah. The view up here from up here on the cross is pretty good.
Okay.
You know?
Well, you suffered for to support and encourage me.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we caught the bug, I would say.
Yeah.
For running.
I don't think the local 5K did it.
No.
For me, I think it was because we had never gone to a big organized running event.
No.
And
It was, I can't believe it even now thinking about it.
our first one being that Disney event, which was at night, in between and inside of the parks, and then you had all the celebration afterward.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think the experience of that was what did it.
Yeah, the medal, the accomplishment, my making it through those 5 miles and handing off to you in the middle of it all,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling so good that I had accomplished a goal, and then the celebration together with the medal, and just, yeah, I think we caught the bug then.
Yeah. And that's why I think that race is one I don't mind repeating every year, is because it has so much meaning for us as being the first one.
Was it in October that year?
It might have been end of October or very beginning of November.
I don't
We'd
know,
have to go back and
yeah,
look, but
yeah.
it's around that time.
Because I
of
think
year.
we got home and we got crazy enough to go, hey, Rachel, what do you think? We got fitted for these shoes. We accomplished the goals. Do you think we could, each one of us, complete a half marathon? The full 13.1. Could we both do that in January?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yeah, go do it.
Now, Rachel Lee, who we love to death, and who's the proprietor of our local run shop here in Cape Coral, is an elite runner. Mm-hmm. When she does women's or any running events, she's now doing tries, but when she does running events in the area, it's almost a guarantee she's going to win the event. I don't mean going to complete the event. I mean, she's usually the first female across the finish line.
Yeah.
And usually ahead of a lot of guys, too.
So
she's amazing.
She's a machine, very talented.
But I'll tell you, and she's actually part of the reason that I think I was willing to stick with this. And I used to crack jokes a little bit about it. We'd go to a place like a big box retailer for sporting goods, and you'd go there, and all the clothing is made for skinny people. You'd go to try to get.
You're keeping it PG.
I'll keep it PG. You go to get shoes, and it's just like you're really buying them based on look, and you're trusting that you know what you need, and getting involved with her and seeing somebody who's an elite runner who is like, you guys are the ones I'm in awe of, because you're working so much harder to do the same distance I'm doing. And you're spending more time out there than I am, and you're taking the beating. And she understands the difficulty for middle and back of the pack runners
who don't necessarily come by any natural talent at all.
No, not for running anyway.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and she is so welcoming of that. And the cynic would say, "Oh, she wants to sell you shoes." Well, of course she does, but at the same time, she wants you to be a repeat customer. She wants you to enjoy and get something out of the sport and out of the hobby. And she was our first exposure, I think, to people in the running community that show how welcoming and how diverse this community is.
Yes.
Because you go to a race and you've always got the handful of people in a race that are, they're out for their PR and they're not, saying anything to anybody, and they're, mad if you're in their way or you're slow and they have to go around you, whatever the case may be. But the overwhelming majority of runners are so supportive of each other because
so positive.
They've all been there. They've all had a crappy run. They've all hit a wall.
Or overcome some obstacle.
And they know what it's like.
Yeah.
So that was, I think her exposure and getting to meet her was key to us sticking with this.
Yes. And I think then beyond that, when we were at Disney to complete that first half marathon fully, the 13.1, seeing Jeff Galloway.
Yeah, you had heard about him. And, we've talked about Jeff on previous episodes of the show. Jeff being a former Olympian and the champion of the run, walk, run method. And when we listened to one of his talks.
Yes.
Because they used to have a speaker series at the expo that went away, and then they brought it back, and I hope they keep it because it's incredibly informative. Yeah. But Jeff, being the official run coach of Run Disney, was talking about the method and the science behind it. And, at first I thought it was going to be a big pep talk, and I think each of us got something different out of his talk. You really connected with him on an emotional level.
Yes.
Immediately. And I saw that with you when you were listening to him. I connected with what he was talking about in terms of the science.
Yes.
Because what he was talking about made so much sense. I mean, you've got this guy who is an Olympic class athlete who represented our country in the Olympics. And he's talking about, the human body was probably designed to run 100 to 200 yards max. And that's to either catch food or to avoid becoming food. And capitalizing on that design in short bursts of speed. But you could do it for a very long period of time, and then talks about all the research and all these studies he's been a part of. That resonated with me. What was it about his message at first, or about him at first for you?
I think he talked about mindset, and he talked about how it feels to accomplish the goal, and he talked about the 1% of people and what that does to you, and that everybody could do it. Again, you talked about Rachel being so welcoming. And when you think about Olympians, you think, well, how they're elite, they're competitors. How welcoming do you think they're going to be? And he has been, over the past 10 years, very much like a father figure.
Yeah.
In the running journey that we've taken.
He's your Yoda.
Yeah. He's very much my Yoda. Not a baby Yoda, but an older, wiser Yoda. So, yes. So we found him, and we found his app. And I think that just... and I know that there are other struggles and obstacles that in our running journey we've had, because I adopted his method and I achieved some success. But when it came to maintaining paces for a long period of time, when pacing requirements are strict or can be strict for a back-to-pack runner, everything is relative, and there's perspective depending on if you're an elite or middle of the pack, back of the pack runner. But I got into his method, but when I got picked up from a race, that is when we truly became connected through his e-coaching program.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
the rest is history. I mean, you've been with him
Yeah.
almost continuously for
Yeah.
the better part of 10 years.
yeah. And it's the drills, and it's designing the program, because, there's the method, there's the research behind it that you responded to scientifically, logically, and then that can work during the race. But there are also components to the training that I learned through the e-coaching program and through his book, the Marathon You Can Do It book, that you have to maintain in your training cycle to execute on race day.
Yeah. So Jeff's been an invaluable resource for us, and he was a large part of how people who had really put on a lot of weight over 10 plus years of being married and comfortable and life's good and all that, and then it creeps on and it's insidious.
And I'm gonna tell you, I was always an emotional eater, and still, I have that urge.
I just eat out of boredom.
So it's an emotional type thing. And throughout this whole running journey, when I'm figuring out how to execute in the races, and the run, walk, run method, if you get into it, you get what you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout there, I'm refining that, but I'm also kind of I'm trying to drop weight at the same time.
Right.
Which can be conflicting goals when you get into really high mileage, because you get so hungry, and then you think, oh, I reward myself because I've run all these miles, I can eat all these things. And so they can often be in conflict, and goals of accomplishing races and then goals of weight loss kind of butt heads in my journey over the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, when we started this, I had initially promoted to sergeant and was working at night, and I was back in the gym very hardcore, and I was lifting a lot and was dropping weight when you were dropping weight, and then got into running, and I stabilized, which was good. Yeah. That was very good. But what I've come to learn over the last several years, because going on year after year after year, we had a rough time of really making headway on the weight loss, because like you said, you'd get hungry, you'd reward yourself, and that is proof positive for me that you can't outrun bad diets.
Right. And you're running when you run with more weight on your frame.
Everything's harder.
Everything is, work is harder, life is harder, running is harder, and you can't work to improve towards those goals as much as you would like to mentally, and as much as you could, having the right mindset. Just your body has to be in some kind of shape. And
yeah, and as much as I would joke and say, well, round is a shape, that's not the shape that when you're wanting to make improvements in your time and your pace. And
the lighter you are, the easier it is.
Yeah. So it makes everything harder. So, that was something that we were having some difficulty with.
Yeah, and it's not like we're in it to win a race. It is the completion of a race.
Oh, yeah.
And feeling comfortable in making improvements in that.
Well, we were never trying to win the race. We just wanted to run the best race we could.
Right.
So, we're very happy being back of the pack runners. That's fine. It's just I don't want to be eating, what did my friend Joe call it, Ranger candy.
Ranger candy?
Yeah, Tylenol or ibuprofen. You want to be chomping on those like it's a food group. So, you want to be at a healthy weight where you're not beating yourself up. And that was something that, in spite of all the running, I had crept up to, as recently as 2 years ago, I had crept up to 308 pounds.
Yeah.
And There was a day at work, and I remember I was working. By this time, I had been promoted to lieutenant. I was working in the office, my chief's office. High profile job, a lot of stress, a lot of deadlines, and just I had been in the public eye and in like I said, a very high profile position for a while, and it was just one of those things that I didn't think much of it because I was too busy, doing work and then getting my runs in when I was off.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the time that I used to hit the gym. So I wasn't lifting, but I was still running, but I was still eating like I was both running and lifting. And that contributed to the packing on of weight. But there was a day at work, particularly stressful day, and at the end of the day I was like, you know what, I feel like absolute crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really describe it to you. Nothing hurt, just I felt awful, and I had this like whooshing sound in my ears, and I was like, you know what,
something's not right.
I don't feel good. Something's not right. I work 5 minutes from the hospital, and I have a police car. I'm gonna drive myself over there and get somebody to check me out, and I did.
And it was very scary for me.
I drove myself to the hospital and, popped in.
Hearing that at work, it was very scary.
Knew some of the people at the hospital. I said, hey, would you mind just checking me out? I don't feel good. And they sat me down, and what's the first thing any doctor does? They listen to your heart and they check your blood pressure.
Yep.
And they checked my blood pressure, and they looked at me and they go, you're going to hang out with us for a little while. I'm like, okay. And then they ushered me over to the actual patient check-in area, because apparently this was not just going to be a quick in and out with the doctor friends of mine. And they were like, your blood pressure's 220 over 110. You're in stroke territory. And that hit home for me because my father had a stroke when I was 12. And he'd had it. Yeah, both my parents grew up in the South, my dad in the early 1900s, my mom in the mid 1900s, and the Southern way of life, being basically you batter, fry everything and cover it in salt and butter, and
yes,
if you can figure out a way to cover your butter and salt with gravy, then do that.
Oh yeah,
and
my family as well.
But both my parents had hypertension. Both my father had a stroke, and my mother ended up dying of cancer. And that was just, I had some time to kind of sit and relax while they were giving me IV medicines to get my blood pressure down. And I had some time to really sit and think about that. And it's like, at that time I was 43. And I was like, I am way too young for this.
Yeah.
So knowing that I was literally, and 2 days later, I did the exact same thing. I drove myself back to the hospital. They did the exact same thing. And I was like, all right, that's it. I've got to make some drastic change. So this leads us into the eating portion.
Yes, it does.
Indirectly, because I was literally like, when you put on, like I bought myself a blood pressure cuff that pairs to my iPhone. And
I brought that home.
Every time I'd look at it and run it, it was telling me hypertensive crisis. That is not words you want to see from a medical device you're using on yourself.
And those are not words that you want to hear about your soulmate, your best friend, your husband.
So
scary.
So I was like, all right, I got to figure something out. And I think that by this time it was the weekend, I start looking for some spoken word content. I'm looking for some books. I'm like, I got to do something different and change it up. I mean, I'd done the CrossFit thing. I knew that the solution wasn't going to be in working out, because I'm not afraid to go to the gym. I'm not afraid to sweat. I'm not afraid to kill myself in a workout. But
I mean, we were training for a half marathon at the time.
Yeah. So I didn't know what I was looking for. So I started looking around online, and I ran across, and I'd heard him talk about it on an interview before, but I ran across an audiobook on iTunes, or Apple Books or whatever it's called now. Written by Penn Jillette, the magician, half of the Magical Act Penn and Teller, called Presto: How I Made 100 Pounds Disappear and Other Magical Tales. And I've been a huge Penn and Teller fan all my life. In fact, I saw their very first appearance on David Letterman in, I think, 87. Oh. And I've had their books over the years. I've watched them anytime they're on TV. Just I always enjoyed them. And I loved their show on Showtime. Penn and Teller's BS.
Yes.
I'm gonna abbreviate that so we keep our clean tag.
That's right.
But so I said, you know what? What the heck? I mean, I figured it was going to be kind of a typical Hollywood, and I had actually seen him on a couple of reality shows. I'd seen him on The Apprentice, and I'd seen him on
like a Food
Network star,
show?
Next Food Network star, Celebrity Edition.
Yeah,
and I seen he had lost a ton of weight, and he's 6'8", 300 plus pounds. Well, I listened to his book, and actually I got it on audiobook because I was looking for spoken word content, because I like listening to podcasts and other things on runs. And I got to listening to it, and there was just something about the whole message of that book that resonated with me. And you've listened to the book too.
Yes.
I've subjected you to it at first, and you've done it on your own, but
I really like that he comes out in the disclaimer at the beginning and says, it's not that I'm trying to convince anybody else to adopt what I've done.
No. In fact, he tells you, he goes, if you listen to a Las Vegas magician for health and fitness advice, you're an a-hole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Roger that.
Yeah.
So
he's very blunt and honest.
He is, and it's super refreshing. But it was also, there were things that he was saying that was really resonating. He was on multiple medications. I've now been put on multiple medications at this point. He, was always a big guy. After college, I was always a big guy. Mm-hmm. He, has family and is career oriented and all that. And I'm like, yeah, this is all resonating. But then he said, you know what? He's on the cusp of getting a gastric bypass.
Oh yeah,
operation,
like a stomach sleeve.
Nothing, and he's when he starts talking to his doctor, he's like, could I maybe avoid this? Is there any way? And they're like, well, you'd have to lose a lot of weight really quick. And he ended up hooking up with a scientist by the name of Ray Cronise, and Ray is a NASA scientist, has been doing all kinds of research on metabolism, and was telling him some stuff and said, yeah, I could help you lose the weight. And it really changed his life and kind of reset everything he thought about food. And he's like, you know what? I gave myself permission to go crazy, because nothing I was going to do is going to be as crazy as getting part of my stomach cut out. Yeah. And I was like, man, you know what? That, again, the slow and steady wins the race thing was great. Yeah. But I'm looking down the barrel of a smartphone that keeps telling me hypertensive crisis, get your butt to the hospital. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give myself permission to go crazy and do something that's totally off for me. And so this is a long way of getting to the point, which is, at that point, I said, I'm going to go, at least for a time, plant-based, like he does in this book. And there's a whole lot to this book, and I don't want to get into a whole regurgitation of the book, but a plant-based diet with no added salt, sugar, or fat. Right. And I said to you, this is what I'm going to do for me, and I don't expect you to do it.
He said that. You said that to me, and I was first, as your spouse, I have to say, I was scared to death to lose you. So
I was scared to death to lose me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, here we are building life together. I have the most amazing man. I want you with me for as long as possible. So whatever you needed to do, I was in on that. And I said, but let me, so that I don't screw it up, let me watch you do the first couple of weeks, and which was right before our Star Wars, the last time we participated in the Star Wars half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And watching you do it and seeing how dedicated you were and how the diet impacted you and how you dropped weight so quickly. When we got back from the race, I committed.
Yeah. And long story short, you can't fill up on enough green leafy and cruciferous vegetables to not help but lose weight.
Yeah.
So that part was pretty easy. The hard part was just adjusting the palate and getting used to that. So I took inspiration from Penn's book, but then I used that as a jumping off point. And I started going, okay, I clearly can't seek, all of my health guidance from a Las Vegas magician, or else I am an a-hole. So I started looking at some of the research and other things behind what he was doing. So I started Googling Ray Cronise, looking at some of his work where he talks about metabolic winter. And again, a lot of what he talks about dovetails into a lot of what Jeff talked about the design of the human body and how we haven't evolved in the last few hundred years to make up for the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution where food was scarce and we didn't live in a constant state of plentiful.
Right.
And our bodies have not adapted to having these plentiful calories around us all the time. And just really interesting stuff, and not preachy.
No.
I was the guy who would make fun of the vegan option on the menu. I would joke about vegans being from the planet Vigo. And
I'm going to say I never thought I would adopt that kind of lifestyle.
And to be fair, I am not a vegan. This was something else that Penn talked about, was he's not doing it for ethical reasons.
Right.
He's doing it for health reasons. So he called himself an unethical vegan. And I laugh at that moniker that he gave himself, but it was pretty appropriate. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of me.
He's like, yeah, okay, it's the closest thing that I can call myself. It's not really what I want. It's not totally right, but it'll do.
And this is before the term that you hear people using now, which is plant-based, really started getting mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
And you're starting to hear that more and more. Because there's no ethical thing for me, because as you guys hear, we have no problem eating a good meal.
Right.
And
part of the plan is to
allow for rare and appropriate off-plan dining.
Yes.
So we adopted this as the rare and appropriate day being when we are recording the show.
Right.
So it made a lot of sense. I started researching Ray Cronise, and I said, all right, I read what he had to offer. He partnered with Julieanna Hever to do the Idiot's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition, because it's kind of important to know where you're getting all of what you need from. And it is, I will freely admit, idiot when it comes to plant-based nutrition. I mean, in my life growing up, plants were always the side to the fried, covered in gravy, covered in fat, meat of some kind.
Yes.
To Southern parents. So that was kind of the genesis. And then he also had some other reference materials. He talked about Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who has a book called Eat to Live that talks about more of the science behind the plant-based eating. And again, none of these authors are preaching the gospel of veganism. They're not making judgments of, because animals have pretty eyes or any of that. They're purely talking about this from a perspective of nutrition. And hey, if you're going to have your rare and appropriate meal and you're going to eat a steak, cool. That's up to you. So
Right.
it was kind of a nice way to do it, and it has turned into out of habit now for the last couple of years.
We're coming up on doing the Star Wars races in April.
Yes.
And that is, and I know I'm talking about running and we're talking about the eating segment, but really that in terms of time, I can just remember so clearly coming back from that race and starting the plan. So that's how in time I gauge it, and I look back and I think at the beginning when we started, I thought, I've tried so many things, and not really seen long-term success.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we have both kept off 70 pounds.
70 pounds plus. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming up on 2 years.
Yeah. And now we've started a new cycle of instead of maintenance, trying to drop a little more.
Right.
Because you're getting ready for Chicago.
Right. And to be as light as I can will only help.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just unbelievable to me because honestly, when we started, I love Penn's book and I get all of that. And maybe you are more the scientific and logical one.
He's funny. I love him.
But I really was motivated by the realistic, down to earth way, and his just being real.
Oh, yeah.
But when I started to see progress in both of us, and how it affected our state of mind, and how we have been happier because of it. Not just healthier, but happier because of it.
Oh, absolutely. And
I think that's why we have stuck with it. And because you can have that rare and appropriate. So it's not like we are vegans all of the time, 100% of the time. It's there. Nothing is off limits.
No, nothing's off limits. I think it's, again, listening to a lot of the science of what they're talking about kind of makes it, and this could be total BS because nobody knows because none of us were there. But, when they start talking about what they think in terms of the science, that like a Ray Cronise or Dr. Fuhrman would say, or might say is, humans might have, would eat meat, but, they would forage for those plant-based nutrients far more frequently. So the meat would in fact be rare and appropriate when they were able to do so.
Yeah.
And, we didn't start having that massive overabundance of plant-based protein until we, domesticated cattle. And then that started changing, a lot of things. But getting to, what else we've done in terms of the food is it's been 2 years now, and using some of these resources and other resources, the hardest thing or the most interesting thing has been trying to find recipes, flavors, ingredients that you can use. And ultimately my goal will be to be off all of my meds, and that's the ultimate goal for this year. So I'm like you shared your goal for Chicago. I'm sharing that goal. So when I'm off all of my meds, I will let everybody know.
And I certainly hope that I am as light as I can be for whatever may happen at Chicago.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna be ridiculously ready for that. I have no doubt. But
I'm in good hands as far as our diet goes and as far as our training goes.
Yeah, so. And these books we've talked about, whether you're looking for something for motivation like Presto, or you're looking for some data and some plans. And oh, by the way,
recipes.
We've involved our doctors at every step of the way.
Of course.
So, I mean, that probably should go without saying, but just to be on the safe side, take none of what we say as medical advice, because we are if you get your medical advice from a couple of rank amateur podcasters, you might be an a-hole. No, I'm kidding. But no,
it's not cool.
Don't listen to us.
No.
Just like Penn says, don't listen to me. Talk to your doctor. But these are some resources that really worked for us.
Seek expert advice.
And that's what we've been doing over the last couple of years while you guys have been coming along on this journey with us. So when you hear us talk about our we eat plant-based 6 days a week or vegan 6 days a week, that's why we do that. It's not ethical choice. It's just purely for health, and it's been really successful for us so far.
It's hard to believe that the first year of the podcast we weren't here, we weren't on the plan, and now we are.
Yeah.
So now for most of the show, that's the way we've been eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait to see what this year brings, and it's nice to take a look back and to appreciate and celebrate accomplishments like that.
Absolutely. And I know that people who listen to the show think that we are powered by caffeine and bourbon.
Beer.
Yeah, and
beer. Sorry. No. Well, I mean, they both start with the letter B, but yes. Bourbon, beer, and caffeine.
Yeah. But truth be told, the vast majority of the time, our drinks are much less powerful or potent.
Or alcoholic.
Certainly much less alcoholic.
Yes.
That makes things like going to work that much easier. So in order to add some variety to the things that we drink at home, of course, we've done away with added salt, sugar, and fat from our diet day to day. But and that also means almost all processed foods and soft drinks.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I'll be the first to tell you that we're rolling into the drink segment of the show. And I was growing up just addicted to Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola and my mom's sweet tea.
For you?
Were the only things I drank. That and whole milk growing up. Those were the three things I drank. And then if I drank water, it was out of a garden hose. It wasn't inside.
When you were outside
playing
with friends as a strapping young lad.
That's it.
Yeah. So it's hard to give up that fizzy comfort, and coffee we used to drink with all sorts of like dairy and frou-frou.
I can tell you. Well, you did the frou-frou drinks. I just did half and half and sweet and lower sugar in my coffee.
Yeah.
And then again, once transitioning to this plan, it was basically do away with all of the animal products and all the artificial and sweeteners.
Yes.
So I went overnight to black coffee.
Yes, and that is how we take it now, but that was no easy task to adjust to that.
No.
But I think harder for me was giving up the Coca-Cola, the soft drink, even Sprite.
Right there with you.
Yeah, because the sugar, the bubbles,
even the diet soda it would have been like easier to give. Would have been easier if we could have kept that, but we did away with that too.
Because it has all artificial.
Again, trying to stick to the plan.
Yeah.
So
we had to find something that would vary up our drinking options and get us hydrated. Of course, we drink tons of water when we're out there running.
Yes.
And working out and throughout the day. But I am so grateful, I'm just going to say, for a product called SodaStream.
Not a sponsor. Just something that we have and love and want to share.
Yeah, because I could very easily go out there and I could get Perrier or...
Oh, we've done it. We've had Perrier. We've had San Pellegrino.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. Mm-hmm. They're absolutely delicious. But that gets pricey after a while.
It does. And I think some of them out there, like knockoff brands or whatever, just of the fizzy water, have some sodium that impact you.
Once you get to looking, I'll tell you what, if you want to have, I don't know if I would call it fun, but if you want to go on an adventure when you go shopping,
Do a little treasure hunt.
go do a treasure hunt at your grocery store and start looking at the sodium in everything you buy. It wasn't until I was on a mission to cut out added salt that I realized just how much is added into absolutely everything, down to even canned vegetables.
Yeah.
And then when we started looking at seltzer water, there's sodium in seltzer water. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And like the pre-bottled stuff.
Yeah.
So what I like is we went to Bed Bath & Beyond, I think, and picked up a Soda Stream, but you can get it anywhere.
Also not a sponsor, but if you sign up for their weekly flyer or whatever, you get a once a month 20% off coupon.
Oh, yeah. Which is great.
Super cool.
Yeah. So the Soda Stream, well, now you can get everything on Amazon.
That's true.
I mean, it's sitting right there on Amazon.
I think this predated it being on Amazon.
Yeah. But it is it is a contraption with a CO2 canister in it. I'm not
You're describing it
sciencey.
perfectly.
I'm not sciencey like you.
You take your bottle full of water.
And you do
you screw it into the spout, and then you press a button.
You press a button, and it gives it a zhuzh, and then you have bubbles in your water without sodium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can. What I like about it,
apparently,
you can add your lemon and lime if you want. If you want to slice up some berries or just throw some, mashed up berries in there. You can have flavored waters if you want. They do sell syrups.
And I think if you get the starter package with the Soda Stream and the bottles that comes with like those flavors, which I think are sugar, sugar bombs.
They're absolute sugar bombs.
Yeah.
But they have the diet versions. They also, here's the other thing, you can just use those flavor drops if you like those flavor drops. I forget what they're called, but for flavoring your water or anything that you normally would add to your water, you can add to these things.
I just like lemon or lime.
We keep it simple.
Yeah.
You lemon or lime. Sometimes I'll throw some raspberries in mine.
Or some orange slice. But a lot of I would say a lot of the time that I'm satisfied by the fizz itself, and I'll just drink it without anything. It just mixes it up, plain water versus having some of that, the bubbly water. So it's just variety.
Well, and that's the thing. It keeps you from getting bored. It's just like if you're cooking different recipes. Mm-hmm. Same thing. It's just a recipe for what you're drinking. Yeah. And again, satisfying, cuts out the sodium, cuts out the sugar, cuts out the chemicals.
Whatever additives.
Aspartame or caramel coloring
that you want to avoid,
food dyes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
If that's important to you.
If that's important to you. Really, I was just missing the fizz. For me, I was just missing the fizz.
And then you can, have fun, like, creating your own flavors, that type of thing. I think that we've actually talked about it in a previous episode. Maybe making fizzy water for a cocktail or something like that. But these are great. They're not terribly expensive.
No.
I think they're on Amazon for about $60, and that includes your first canister. And I think Target and
they have a couple of different versions. Starter kits.
They've got a couple different versions. We're going to link to one affiliate link for us that it's the one that we have. Thing works great, but Target and Bed Bath & Beyond and a couple of other places actually will let you trade in the canisters.
Yes.
So you might buy like an extra canister to have around, but it basically ends up being like $14 or $15 to refill the canister, and the canisters last forever.
I'm going to tell you, I mean, we have a bunch of the water at night when we're having dinner and in the morning or out there. I mean, sometimes I'll even take a bottle and put it in the driveway for when I'm doing laps.
See, I can't do fizzy water when I'm running. I got it for me. Then that's just still water, maybe with a little bit of lemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, to each his or her own.
That's right.
Right? Because you got to do what works for you. And so, but I just love having the option.
So it's a really great device or product. This is the thing that we mainly drink here at home during the week, so that when we are having that rare and appropriate time, when we're out filming or recording or researching for the show, we're able to go and enjoy that adult beverage, whether it's a craft cocktail
or beer or bourbon, like you said,
or even those fancy coffees that you like.
I know.
There's no shortage of that.
Yes.
So that's it. I mean, that's kind of our saga told, in right at about 60 minutes. But we're kind of encapsulating, the genesis of our 3-year journey in about an hour. But this gives you all an idea of where we've come from and what we do. And, we know that there are a lot of people out there looking for motivation or looking for something to vary up their fitness routine or
food routine, or
they're wanting to maybe dial in their nutrition. I mean, we list the book. We're going to list the books in the show notes of the episode. Check it out because, again, these are great resources. Penn's book is a little more of a entertainment and motivation than a resource, but he points you towards some good stuff. And then we also link to the books that he references, or by the authors that he references in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm. So if you need it, it's here, and we're not preaching anything to anybody. It's just, this is where we've come from, and if you're looking for it, here's some resources to point you towards.
Yeah, I mean, I've even joked. I said, we're plant-based 6 days a week, and then on day 7, we drunken frat boy.
That's true.
So yeah, that's it's not always once a week, but you get the idea. So that does it for the drink portion, my dear.
Yes. And, as we wrap up, we are so thankful for our Runcation Nation, for everybody who tunes in and listens to the show, our passion project. And we just wonder if you have shared your favorite Runcation Nation podcast lately. And if you haven't, we hope that you'll head on over to your social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Run Eat Drink Podcast. And we're on Twitter at Run Eat Drink Pod. And it would really help us grow our Runcation Nation if you took time to shout out the show on social media.
And if you have got a race that you'd like to share or a place to eat or drink in your hometown that you think we ought to visit, we'd like for you to leave us a 1-minute message with your name, where you're from, and what you want to share with us at info@runeatdrink.net. Just record a quick 1-minute message on your phone and mail it to us, info@runeatdrink.net, or go old school. Call us at 941-677-2733 and leave us a voicemail.
That's 941-677-2733 or info@runeatdrink.net. Hey, next week we're on the road and we're going to be running the Fort Lauderdale Half Marathon, and then we'll be back with a recap for our Runcation Nation. So have a great week. In the meantime, I'm your host, Aimee.
I'm your co-host, Dana.
And we will talk to you really soon.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We're having a great 3rd year because of your support. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Run, Eat, Drink Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at Run, Eat, Drink Pod. You can also give us a call at 941-677-2733 or shoot us an email at info@runeatdrink.net. Visit our website at runeatdrink.net and click on the subscribe link so you don't miss a minute.
Accomplish, explore, and indulge right along with us. We'll talk to you next time.